I think it's very important as you go through life to realize that whatever you think you know, you're probably wrong. And you should always be open to listening to new viewpoints and reconsidering certain things, because you'll see my description of myself. I call myself a transaged person. That I define that I'm the only person that uses that term. If you Google, I'm the only name that comes up, so it's all mine for the moment. Just like the gay movement was all mine back in the early 60s. And that is, I'm a young person trapped in an old body. You know, yeah, body's old, but I tell you the truth, I think in many ways I like to think I'm as young as you people are. And I define that as meaning that I have friends who will teach me how to dance. I've always been uptight about dancing. There's a dance parade, by the way, you might want to get involved in. It happens in the middle of May. They don't have any gay representation, but it's a fabulous event. It's only 2 years old. You know, I just got interested in fashion for 70 years. I mean, at the age of 70. Can you imagine anything more tragic than a 70-year-old man suddenly deciding he wants to be glamorous and look good? You know, and suddenly taking interest in making his own pants, gluing stripes on the pants that he's cut off of athletic wear, designing his own chains, and all this comes from Japanese J-pop video. I discovered a whole world on the other side of the world where men were glamorous just like women. The reason I hadn't been interested in glamour or in fashion, it was all women. But then women are all tied up in pink ribbons. I think it's wonderful if a woman wants to wear a business suit. Matter of fact, and when it comes, the thing that really annoys me is that with government, I went from being a socialist to being an enrolled liberal to being a Democrat to being a liberal Republican to being a libertarian and back to being a Jesse Jackson supporter and a Bill Clinton Democrat. And I love Barack Obama today, but that doesn't mean I won't go back to the Republican Party sometime, because the reason I went to become a Republican is I decided the government couldn't do anything right. I mean, it was just such a mess. And here in Jersey City, you have the most corrupt government in the world. I remember they had, so I sort of became you know, let's unleash the private enterprise system. I mean, I ran a business and I could see how it really can grow, you know, that all these restrictions and burdens and taxes. But then what happened in the early 80s, friends started getting sick with AIDS. And what I suddenly realized, it doesn't matter if the economy is growing at 10 or 20% a year, some incredible rate. It doesn't matter at all if your friends get sick and can't get medical care. We have to have a social net. You know, and as older people, this is the other side of the coin. I'm telling you how lucky you are to be single and not to have to worry about supporting kids that you weren't planning or wanting. The other side of that is, I can tell you as an older person, there's that old saying, no one wants you when you're old and gay. That saying is actually only 50% correct. And that is, no one wants you when you're old. Doesn't matter whether you're straight or gay. Just being old is enough to make people run the other way. I work in video, I go to these conferences. Matter of fact, the one guy so funny, I was telling him about the transaged thing, and he's such a nerd. I mean, he's a straight guy, about 32 years old. He's like, oh, you should really do more about that. That is so fabulous. And he says, then it's funny, because then I felt very validated. Then he said, you know what was amazing about that meeting? We've been in a meeting about 35 people. He said, you know that you were 30 years older than anybody else at that meeting? No, I really hadn't noticed. You know, but that's what I'm saying is I discovered video after, you know, only 4 or 5 years ago. I have a series on YouTube. I'm going to give you these cards. First, I was going to tell you that if an older man, I guess an older woman too, I don't know, but if an older man comes on me, actually women chase me now. I don't know why. Since I turned 60 or 65, I've had more women come on to me than I had in the previous 65 years. But I would say, especially if you're a male, an older man, seem to be friendly. You might well suspect that he has designs on your body. And in most cases, you'd probably be right. But, and this is a very big but, when I was your age, I thought the most horrible thing in the world would be to grow old. You know, no one wants you when you're old and gay. Oh, look at those old wrinkled people and how they sag. And, oh, I don't want to look like that. Hobble along, bent over. It is horrible. Physical decay is horrible. But on top of that, what happens to most old people, they get stuck in time. I just took care of a guy who just died on my birthday, February the 3rd. He didn't want to see a movie made after 1996. I go to this over 40 support group just to make myself feel good because I'm not like them. I'm such a misfit. They'll say, I didn't want to hear George Bush's acceptance speech in 2004, so I put on an old Betty Davis movie. I said, oh, Betty, nothing wrong with old Betty Davis movies, but, you know, Logo, Transgeneration, Sundance Channel, I mean, there's so many more in. Matter of fact,